Welcome to our virtual open house. This is a virtual open house by GBC Tech Training, where we are going to answer questions and provide information and details about our programs to two kinds of questions that have been submitted in advance based on people knowing about it, and certainly we will address all of your questions live that are submitted through chat. So let's get started. My name is Scott Duncan. I am the Manager of Business Development here in the GBC Tech Training Department. I'll be hosting your open house along with my colleague Shimona Bab. Shimona, say hi.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shimona, support consultant at the program, providing you with tutorial and technical support whenever you need help.
So yeah, just FYI on that, if you're a student registered in our programs, Shimona is one of our really great support consultants who is there on the phone, ready to take questions or email and help students out as they work their way through the programs. So Shimona and I will be your main hosts. In the background, we have a couple of other people who are also working on our event today. Iris is keeping an eye on the chat, and as questions are submitted, she'll keep those organized and she'll bring those forward for us at the once we get through our pre-submitted questions. And we have Saba as well in the background, who's monitoring our systems to make sure everything's working right and that we keep track of all of those little technical details. So what's our plan for today? We're going to take about 30 minutes today, and we're going to jump in and address your questions. We have a number of pre-submitted questions that we're going to go through. So we're going to do that first, and then we are going to turn to any chat questions. So you can submit questions through chat through the Collaborate interface. All you have to do is click on that purple button in the lower right-hand corner. The interface will open up for you, and then click on the thought bubble on the left-hand side of that row of options, and that'll open up the chat for you, and you could submit questions there. And I see that there's already some activity there, so that's great. Iris is going to keep track of that and maybe answer some of them live as we go, and then we'll come back to that at the end. Let me see, did I cover everything? Oh, one other thing, we're recording the session today for our benefit, so we can keep track of all these great questions and answers, and maybe use them again in the future, and to help us get better in the future events that we run. So I think with that, we're going to get started and jump into questions. So Shimona, are you there?
Yes, I am, Scott.
Great, Shimona. So I think we've organized it. So you're going to take our first question. You can jump in with that right now.
Sure. Our first question comes to us today from John Shannon. His question to us is he has an electrical engineering background from outside of Canada. However, he recently got his 309A maintenance and construction electrician license. And he wants to know if this is applicable to register into our PLC program. So John, I'm excited to let you know that with your background, you have a strong technical background. You would be able to eligible to register into a program and jump right in to the course with your current technical background, which should be able to assist you in getting through our program quite easily. Scott, I think you could go to our second question that covers our.
Sure, great. And let me just add to that John, that really great background is going to help you probably move through that program or any other program of ours that you take very quickly. It's one of the really great options and benefits of our program is that if you've got a great background with a lot of experience, you can move through the courses and through the modules and the programs at your own pace, and really define for yourself how quickly you want to go through it. That would be a great start, and you'd certainly fit right in. I'm going to go to our second question. It's from Benham Nazirpour. And Benham, you've asked us a little bit about exams, and I'm going to answer that. And then, well, there'll be a couple of follow-up questions. So let me start with the exams. So what are the tests like? How many are there? So there are final exams on every module that is included in the program. The final exams are organized to test you on the content that you've covered in that module. So you work through each module, you do a final exam, you move on to the next module, you do a final exam on that. Once you've finished every module and successfully completed every final exam, you then graduate with the certificate. Benham's next question is, will we be receiving certification after we complete the program? How long is that certification good for? So to be really clear, this is not a certification. This is a certificate, and there's a difference. So we are a post-secondary, higher education post-secondary institution. We provide diplomas and degrees and certificates. Certifications generally are issued by some kind of industry body or organizing body in a particular area. So you would seek those out to pursue certifications for various things. And of course, your certificate is good forever once you graduate. So you can put that on your resume and keep that forever. And then one follow-up question that Benham asks: what is the average annual income for people who work in PLCs? And it's a bit of a tricky question because it really depends on your background. People who have PLC training often come into our programs with a background in electronics or electromechanical. They may be a very experienced technician in one area or another, and then they're layering the PLC certificate on top of that. So we get from that very sophisticated end user to often people who don't necessarily have any technical background, and maybe they're working in manufacturing and they're taking our PLC certificate as their first really formal training in the area. So I'll answer the income question using those two bookends. At the very beginning, entry level, where people start working with PLCs, the income range might be kind of at an entry level around $35,000, $40,000, where you're working as a technician and you're working on PLCs, and then up to kind of a median salary of around $50,000, and then depending on your overall experience and overall general responsibilities, as they get more and more demanding, salaries go up from that. So it's quite lucrative financially. Let's move on to your next question, Shimona.
Okay, our next question would be a typical question that students would ask us. For students who are interested in joining our programs, they always want to know what is the typical tutorial or technical support like they would receive having become student in one of our programs. Well, with a course as technical as ours and being run online, support is one of the main things that you would want to ensure that you're getting when you're in such a program. So we provide tutorial and technical support to all students. We're available Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. with extended hours, just to facilitate students who are working and then studying in the evenings when they get home from work. We also are available on the weekends as well to accommodate those students who are not available during the week to get in contact with us. And that's from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What support would look like, it could be from simply needing assistance to installing your program to get started in the course, to get set up with taking your exams. Anything that you think you're having difficulty doing on your own while studying the program, the Student Support Center is available to assist you during those hours available. We would be following up with students in several ways. You could either contact us by telephone. We have a toll-free number for North America. You could follow up with you via email. Some students prefer interacting with other students. We have a student forum available in your online account, which is assigned to you when you register as a student, where you could interact with fellow students. We have a moderator of that forum that would be able to look at the questions you've posted there and respond to you accordingly. Even jump in if the interaction between students may be inaccurate, to maybe point you all in the correct direction. As I said, support could be from something as simple as just having clarification on calculations within the course content for tutorial support, to something as extensive as going through a lab project where you're stuck and not understanding the programming behind a lot of logic and needing assistance to understand that. We could guide you through either if it's over the telephone, depending on the nature of the question or the help you need. We would find the most appropriate way to deliver that content to you in a more understandable manner, where you would be able to walk away being clear on the content that you've actually you were maybe not so clear on initially coming into with your questions toward to us. Any conflict or errors within the software or anything that you need help with, support is available for you, whether it's tutorial or technically. You have someone like myself or my other colleagues are available to you whenever you need assistance. I think that covers most of it for support, I think, Scott.
Thank you, Shimona. And I'll add one other dimension. I'm not sure if you touched it on at the beginning, and that's administrative support. So Shimona is being very modest about what she and her team does in terms of providing support. So the support group is there to help you administer your program, to get registered, to if there's any technical details of getting set up, and of course that really critical part of working through any problems you're having, understanding the material, which is often the most important element of what they do. So they're there from 9 in the morning until 10 at night, Monday to Friday, and then on weekends to help you work through the material, solve your problems, and facilitate your completion of the program so you can get your certificate and move on. And I will say it's one of the, if you look at some of our comments from past students on our website, you'll see some of the comments around how they feel about the support that they get, and it's really quite remarkable the feedback we get, and great kudos to Shimona and her team for providing that in that way. It's a huge priority for us. It's one of the things that really distinguishes what we do as compared to almost any other kind of program, is you have support available to you, and you're literally a phone call or an email away. I'll move on to the next question. It's from Mustafa Hossein. And Mustafa is asking about fees and time. So I'll break that into two parts. So the fees for the program, the costs are really. I'll first point you back at our websites if you haven't been there. Each of our program websites has a detailed pricing page, which will describe it in exacting detail. In general, our prices range from about, for the whole programs, between about $1,700 and $1,900 for the program start to finish. We also do, we break that up into module pricing, depending on the different programs, anywhere between $60 and $90 per module. If you decide to pay as you learn, which means you register for the first module, you try out the course, you try out the program, and then And then you register for more modules, and you can do it one module at a time, or you can register for the whole program at once and make it simple for you to move through the program. So that's roughly the pricing picture. We do have textbooks that complement the program. They're supplementary textbooks. They're not required, so you don't have to buy them. They're there for you to help you with the content. They complement the programs extremely well, as they were prepared alongside the curriculum, and they range around $170 as most technical textbooks do. Let me talk a little bit generally about time. You weren't too specific, so if I'll take the liberty of Mustafa of answering it around how much time is required to complete a particular program. So the answer is it really depends on you, and there's a few factors that are the main determinants of how long it takes. Number one, your background. If you're coming into a program, for example, John's question at the beginning that Shimona addressed, John is actually an electrical engineer who's just come to Canada, and he's looking for some additional technical hands-on training. John will probably move through a program very quickly with his really great technical engineering background. And that's very common. We get a lot of engineers who may be trained in one area and want to supplement that training with a practical hands-on certificate in another that they haven't been exposed to, like robotics or PLCs is often the case. Someone with a lot of really great technical background, particularly if it's academic and you're used to doing this kind of stuff, you can go very quickly. And we've had students work through the program, different programs in, a couple of months, literally, in some cases. Now, they were exceptional. The average is about 32 weeks, and we say average, meaning the average student who spends the average amount of time on the program. So the average student is somebody who doesn't have a lot of the technical background. They might have lots of work experience, say in PLCs or electronics, and now they're actually want to facilitate their credentials in that area by getting a certificate, and that practical learned knowledge may help them go through really quickly. If you're taking a program from scratch without any experience, it'll take you a little longer. But again, the average is about 32 weeks, and there's quite a large bell curve of people from beginning to end. The other really important determinant, of course, is how much time you spend on the program to work your way through it and to complete each module. So we have students who go quickly, who go very quickly because they're maybe working on it full time. We have some students who go rather slowly and take up to a number of years. We do not have a deadline for completion of the program baked into our terms of how we offer the program. We leave it open-ended, and what will sometimes happen is someone will start a program very enthusiastically and go gung-ho and work through half of the modules, and then something will change in their life, and maybe they've moved, or maybe they've added a child into the family, or maybe they've lost a job or gotten a new job. Lots of things can happen to affect people's availability to study this kind of stuff. And maybe they'll take a break for 6 months, and then they'll come back and they'll dig in. Maybe they'll dig in over the winter and not do so much in the summer. That's up to you. We refer to this as a self-paced program. You get to decide how much time and how quickly you move through the programs to give you as much flexibility to make it work for you. And then we're there to support you in every and any way to get there once you decide what works for you. Shimona, back to your next question.
Thanks, Scott. So another typical question students would ask us is if they could use our simulation software in for instance, the PLC program to build their own projects. and how do you go about using the software, right? So all of our programs has simulation softwares built into it to help you. And within the course content, there are lab projects built to help you understand the curriculum, to go through as we introduce new topics into the program. There are lab projects that are built in to help you understand that content. Apart from the pre-built labs, we have, like in the PLC course, we have over 250 lab projects that would help you understand programming. By the time you finish the PLC program, either it's a PLC or the PLC2 program, you would be able to design, build, and test your own projects on your own. The simulation software is capable of being used as a standalone tool, which means it doesn't run only the projects we've built in there. You're capable of using that tool to open up and build, design, and test your own projects in there. Apart from the pre-built labs that are there, there's also 3D World, right? That emulates real-world manufacturing environments. Some of those worlds that are available are, like, I'll just name a few, like traffic light, single and dual compressors, car wash projects, elevator, bottle line projects, batch mixing, silo, those type of environments. For the 2 PLC program, the first program has the PLC Logic 500 simulator. That emulates the, what I would say, it follows the older version of PLCs from Allen Bradley versus the our advanced PLC program emulates the PLC Logic 5000, right? And they're both of them are based off of Allen Bradley series of PLCs. As I said, there's endless possibilities of building within the simulation software. Our other courses would have projects that would help you to understand the content with either in, let's say, electronics, electromechanical would have the 3D lab, circuit logic simulators, where you could do from simple on-off switching to complex circuits that you may need to test, build, and test, could be done in our simulation tool. For PLC specifically, it's more or less taking you into the real-world environment. Most of what you would find in manufacturing environment, you would be able to replicate that within our software, writing programs to replicate what you would see in the real world. And as I said, it's more there for testing. You could design, build, and test your own projects, as well as manipulate. We would find students who've come to us with haven't taken the course or haven't completed a module and said, okay, I've completed this project and I've changed this project for it to work a little differently, looking at what your base was for teaching that specific, what I would say, that specific lab, right? There's always, what is it called? Practical programming examples at the end of each module that gives you several projects built on those labs, either in regular ladder logic or accompanying with 3D worlds, where you could manipulate those environments to run it as we've built, or you could change to configure it the way you would want to see a project work. And that would be testing your what you've learned so far within the course, right? And we've had a lot of students who've come back with us, either maybe questioning some things that they've done, and maybe they just want an insight on the project they're doing. Yeah, we have lots of cases where the simulation software has been very beneficial for help you to understand the course content and being able to function as a technician when you're out there in the real world, because you're actually learning almost in a real world environment. I think.
Okay, Shimona, thank you. That's a great, thorough answer. Let's we're getting close to 1:30. Let's jump over to some of the submitted questions and try and address as many of those as we can as well. We're not going to cut off at 1:30. We're going to keep going as long as we've got questions. So if you hang in there, we will. So Iris, why don't you lead us through? I know I'm just glancing at some of the questions. I know some have already been answered. So maybe you could just take us through them on a priority basis, and
Right.
Shimona and I will knock them off based on your list.
We have another question from John, and he's asking about the exams and whether there are unlimited tries with the exams. So maybe you could address that and the practice exams that we offer as well.
Sure, I'll take that.
Okay.
John, there are not unlimited tries at your exam. There's some conditions on it. So most students use our practice exams to prepare themselves, and if they do that, they really do often do very well in the final exams. Once you do try a final exam, you'll get an exam result right away that'll tell you whether you passed or not. If you did not pass, you get another try at it. You need to contact one of our advisors to touch base with them, and then you get another shot at it to pass. If you don't pass it the second time, you can come back at it again, but we charge you an administrative fee to kind of encourage you to really work hard to master that content. We know you can, and you can come back at it again. So that's typically the cycle that we go through, that students go through with their exams. And I will tell you that, once you're committed to the program, once you're using the practice exams, which models the format and the style of questions, and if you're really organizing yourself and working through, and with the help of an advisor, we can help get you there, you're going to do well with the exams, and you're going to not have to replicate. You're not going to have to do them over maybe more than once. Iris, what's next?
Jad asked a question whether he can do several modules at once. And I'm just wondering if he's referring to just the modules or whether one can do several programs at once. So maybe, Scott, you can address both.
So the answer is yes and yes. You can. This is self-paced study. You can work. If for example, you take a program because you're really interested in one particular area of our program and have to study up on it so you can do something at work, you can do that. And the program doesn't hold you back on that. We do suggest, though, that you work through it on a linear basis, starting at the beginning, working through to the end. And that's for obvious reasons, and that the content and the material builds, and things in chapter or module 4 are sometimes built on module 2 and 3. So for obvious reasons, there's a certain linear progression of the content, and we advise people to follow the progression. You don't have to. You can jump around. If you're an experienced engineer like John, who we talked about now a couple times, he might want to bounce around because he feels he can deal with some of them pretty quickly. So that's the scenario with modules. With respect to programs, we actually have many students who sign up for more than one program at a time, because again, they have special interests and they want to work through different material as quickly as they can, and cherry pick to some degree the content, and that's okay. We don't necessarily suggest it, because we've learned a lot over the years from working with students, and we know that if you've got too many options and you're bouncing around too much, there's a chance you can stall out, or that you don't, it doesn't maintain a priority for it, and maybe you don't complete the program. So the answer is yes and yes, but we do suggest you do the modules in order, and we do suggest that you take the programs in a sequence, one after another. Iris.
Yes. Eng asked a number of questions, but we'll start with this one. If I study robotics as part of the automation program, is that enough, or should I complete it in the robotics technician program? Scott, I guess this is another one for you.
Okay, thank you. So that's a tough question, because it's really hard to define enough. I'm not sure what your definition of that is, but let me take a shot at it. Um, uh, so the automation program has a number of modules that cover the robotics side of that curriculum. And then the robotics program covers a wider range of that curriculum. The robotics program is, gosh, I think it's 13 modules, and there's maybe three or four, maybe I think it's four modules that overlap between robotics and automation. So you're getting a third of the content in automation that you get in the robotics program. If you were looking for an overview program that hits the major components of automation systems, from electronics to electromechanical to PLCs to robotics, the automation program is an opportunity for you to do that and get some of the training across each of those four areas to position you well for your job, for the job you're going for the promotion that you're seeking. If you maybe if you're working in a plant in a setting where you're bringing in robots and you really need to bone up on robotics and get really knowledgeable on sensors and safety and all that stuff, because you want to be the person who gets the tap on the shoulder to say, you're going to look after these new robots in our manufacturing facility, you probably want to do the robotics program. So the answer is, again, I'm sorry, it depends, but it really does depend a lot on what you're trying to accomplish, what your objectives are for the training in the first place. Iris.
Another question I think that's related that Ang answered, and I tried to get some clarification. So Ang, I hope I'm conveying this properly, and maybe Shimona, you can help answer this. Is, there are important skills, Ang answers, that are necessary in automation. What are some of the topics or skills that someone might come out of our automation program with? I hope that conveys your question. And Shimona, maybe you can discuss some of the topics that are covered and some of the skills that they'll walk away with.
Sure, I'll try to answer that question, Iris. As Scott mentioned earlier, the automation program covers a little bit of electronics, electromechanical, in depth in automation distribution, like DCS controls, SCADA systems. Then it takes you into PLC, enough PLCs for you to be able to program in an automated environment. Likewise, robotics, right? So coming out of the automation program, you're more rounded as, what a way to say, to function in an automation environment. In comparison to being specialized as the person who, like if you're looking at a mechanic who does just the changing of parts on the belts and on conveyors and stuff like that, you'll be able to do a little bit of controlling the conveyors that person is programming. Likewise, go down to component level troubleshooting and debugging of the electronic component side of the system as well. Likewise with PLC, even going into manipulating the controls for that automated system. And where if there is robotics included in a program in that environment, you probably would be able to touch on that. So I mean, taking an automation course gives you a more rounded background. If you want to specialize within an automation environment where there's, like as Scott mentioned just now, more robotics within that environment, it would be best to maybe do the automation and then complete the robotics as well, where you won't have to complete the modules that you've already taken for robotics in the automation course. So any overlapping content within our programs are you're exempted from it when you take the auto program. Does that answer your question to some extent, Iris?
Yes.
It's a little wide, I mean, for that.
Yeah. Shimona, if you can look at the chat, Eng is asking something very specific about communication protocols. I'm going to pronounce this incorrectly, Profitbus modules, OPC server inside the modules. I'm not sure. I'm not a technical person. I don't know if he's referring to something specific.
So it's covered to some extent in PLCs as well. Not in depth. It's all in the communication protocols. It's covered in multiple program, a bit in automation and as well as in PLCs. Right. If he needs more information, maybe he could send us an email specifically when we're done, and we could get back to specific modules if you want to know in-depth content what he's looking for. If it's just specifically communication protocols he's looking at, we could see how in-depth it's covered to address that to him specifically via email, probably.
Perfect. And if you want to, and probably the best thing, because you've got a lot of questions, one of our program consultants can help you out. So if you drop your email into the chat, I'll make sure that somebody gets in touch with you.
Yeah, follow up with him.
Yeah. Scott, Ben asked a question, and I think you touched on it at the beginning of, about the average salary after getting, and Ben referred to it as a certification. Again, it is a certificate, but Scott, can you just quickly touch on that? Ben, you didn't indicate which programs. So Scott, can you give a bit of an overview?
Sorry, I lost track a little bit there. So an overview of salary across the programs, is that what you're
right, salaries once you get your certificate.
Right, right. So, you know, again, the challenging part of answering this question is it really depends on your overall background and your skill sets and your work experience. We see people with such a broad spectrum. You might be thinking about just kind of at an entry level without a lot of background experience. So we did talk about that when we answered Benham's question. Oh, sorry, that is Ben probably. Okay. So yeah, the baseline, you know, the baseline kind of work opportunity for someone without any practical experience in this is kind of an entry level manufacturing position where you might, you know, get a position anywhere between 30 and, you know, $35 an hour. Your starting salary might be 35,000 to 40. It really does depend so much. There are, you know, for example, I'll use robotics as an example. There are robotics tender positions where in some companies people are hired just to feed a robot, for example, a paint robot, where there's somebody who is hired simply to keep the paint robot loaded, and they would so having a job like that where you're basically working with a robot, but having our program would really prepare them well for that. And their boss and the hiring managers would say, "Yeah, this guy's got potential because he knows all this stuff, and maybe he can grow with us." So that might be a starting point, but that's probably an entry level, you know, $25,000-$30,000 job, as opposed to somebody who's actually programming the robot, and they might be paid $60,000 to $70,000 a year. So there's quite a range of positions. There's no one answer. It depends on the position. It depends on your background, because if you're coming to a job with an engineering degree with a robot, but you've taken our robotics program to tune up your knowledge and skill with robots, it's going to be a different scenario. So I'll just conclude by saying, you know, the range is let's say 35 to start, and then more median level up to 50, and then quite a bit higher than that for very senior positions where you're a programmer and managing the code for PLCs or robotics.
Scott, Julio asked about university transfer process. There was a previous question about are our programs accredited? And I did answer that, so maybe you want to touch on that. And then Julio asked about a pathway for the automation program.
So I'm looking for Julio's question in the chat. I don't see it. Where is it? Is it at the end, at the middle, at the beginning, Iris, just so I can see it?
It's at the end.
There's Julio. Okay, I see you. Can we touch on the university transfer process? Is it a different link? So So we have a number of pathways for students to pursue associated with different programs. The general pathway most generally includes electronics. We have a means through which students can take electronics certificate here at George Brown, then extend that to get an electronics diploma here at George Brown, and then articulate with a bunch of universities, Athabasca in Alberta, Newman, a couple of different ones in the US, and you can insert our program into their programs. Some of them require just electronics, some of them require electronics and PLC. We do not have a specific articulation to answer your question as closely as I can, Julio. We don't have a direct articulation for a university automation degree, although I know that that's an emerging area and they do have them. I would focus you on that university transfer section and page that we do have in the electronics program. That's where the majority of our articulation for university degree articulation and completion exists. And if you really want more information about how this accreditation works and what it would mean if you did our automation program and then went to another school and say, I've got this, do I get credit in your program, and can I move into different higher levels? We really should discuss that with you, because that's a very specific kind of situation that really needs further understanding from our part to answer it, and then explanation to give you the best information possible. Iris, anything else?
Scott, Eng is asking a lot of questions, and I have suggested that we get a program consultant to contact you directly to answer your specific questions. I think that's probably the most efficient way of getting the answers you need to your questions. Otherwise, Scott, I believe we've answered the questions that have popped up in the chat. We do have one note from Ben, who asked if there was an audio recording. And Scott, if you can address of this session, if you can address.
Sure. Yes, we are recording this, and we will polish it up and have it available. And if you'd like to get this just to help you consider it further, let us give us your email or phone number, and we'll get that to you. So I guess maybe we've run out of questions, which is good, because we're getting close to 1:45. So let's wrap at this point. We really appreciate your participation today. You've had some great questions and some great enthusiasm and interest, which is always exciting for us to hear. We would love to talk to you more, to give you more information. Give us a call, send us an email, make that connection, and then we'll get everything else that you need in terms of understanding what we've got. And we're very happy to describe it more fully and help you come to move your decision-making process along in terms of how you want to, what you want to pursue in terms of your technical training. So let's wrap it on that today. Thank you so much, everyone. Be doing this again in the near future, so stay tuned. Subscribe to our newsletter. You'll hear about future open houses if you want to come back and ask more questions, or just call us and talk to our advisors, and we'll be able to answer things more directly and have that immediate feedback for you. Thank you so much. We're going to conclude on that. Everyone have a great day, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.